The story of Charlie Chaplin's birth was written down. Walworth, South London, the 16th of April, 1889, at 8 o'clock in the evening. Chaplin put that line in his autobiography in 1964. Every biography that came after repeated it, but in 1952, when British intelligence was asked to verify it, they could not. No certificate, no record, nothing. In 2011, his daughter unlocked a drawer in his Swiss home and found a letter Chaplin had hidden there for the last 20 years of his life, and it gave a completely different version. The man under the bowler hat was the most recognizable human being on Earth for most of the 20th century. The tramp, the little fellow, the face that taught a global audience what cinema could do. Chaplin built that face on a London origin story. Working-class Lambeth, music hall parents, a mother lost to mental illness, a childhood in the workhouse at Hanwell and the asylum. Waiting rooms of Coulsdon, all of it true. All of it documented in census records, school registers, and admission books. But the moment before that, the actual moment of his birth, has no paperwork attached to it at all. Not in England, not in France, not in any registry that British or American intelligence could find when they spent months looking in the early 1950s. The most photographed life of the century begins with a gap. Inside that gap, locked in a bedside table at a Swiss manor, Chaplin kept a letter that named a place no biographer had ever mentioned. The letter was written sometime in the 1970s by a man named Jack Hill, posted from Tamworth in the English Midlands to Chaplin's home outside Vevey, Switzerland. It was addressed to a worldwide celebrity by a complete stranger, and it opened with this line, "You're a little liar, but you can be forgiven because you don't know where you were born." Hill went on, "You were born in a caravan. It was a good one. It belonged to the gypsy queen who was my auntie. You were born on the Black Patch in Smethwick near Birmingham. So was I, 2.5 years later." Chaplin did not reply publicly. He did not throw the letter away. He locked it in the bedside drawer of his bedroom at the Manoir de Ban and left it there. After Chaplin's death in 1977, the drawer stayed locked. After his widow Una's death in 1991, his daughter Victoria finally opened it and found the letter inside. For another 2 decades, the family said nothing. Then, in February 2011, the existence of the letter went public, and a quiet question that had hovered around Chaplin's biography for 50 years got loud. If the letter was a hoax, why had he locked it away like a relic? And if it was not, what exactly did British intelligence fail to find? What MI5 was looking for, in October 1952, was a communist. The FBI had asked British intelligence to dig up Chaplin's background so the American government could keep him out of the United States. J. Edgar Hoover believed Chaplin's real name was Israel Thornstein, a Russian Jewish emigre with something to hide. MI5 ran the search. They checked Somerset House for every variation of the name: Chaplin, Thornstein, Harley, Hill. They got a tip from Scotland Yard pointing to a town called Fontainebleau, south of Paris. They sent agents, nothing. The Russian theory collapsed. The French theory collapsed. The file, declassified in February 2012 as document KV23700 at the National Archives, contains an internal MI5 conclusion that should have rewritten Chaplin's biography on its own. It would seem that Chaplin was either not born in this country, or that his name at birth was other than those mentioned. The most investigated entertainer of the 20th century had no paperwork. That is the documentary track that the Jack Hill letter walks straight into. The genealogical track runs alongside it. Ian Hancock, a Romani scholar at the University of Texas at Austin, traced Chaplin's paternal grandfather, Spencer Chaplin, to a marriage in Ipswich on the 30th of October, 1854. Spencer married a 17-year-old woman named Ellen Elizabeth Smith. Smith is the most common British Romanical surname. Through the 1880s and the 1890s, the matriarch of the Romani community at the Black Patch in Smethwick was a woman named Centenia Henty Smith. She was called the Gypsy Queen. She was the widow of Esau Smith, the king of the encampment. The Black Patch held around 300 Romani families at its peak. It was a known British Romani settlement, evicted by the courts in 1905 and finally cleared in 1909. And in his 1964 autobiography, Chaplin himself wrote a single sentence that everyone read past for 47 years. Grandma was half gypsy. This fact was the skeleton in our family cupboard. He named the secret. He did not name where it led. The resistance to the black patch story is real, and it is honest. The cultural historian Matthew Sweet put it cleanly when the MY5 file was released. The letter, he said, is not proof that Chaplin was born in a gypsy encampment. It is proof that Chaplin was attracted enough to that story to keep it locked away. The piece of paper that would settle it does not exist. He is right about the piece of paper. He is right that one letter from a man in Tamworth is not a birth certificate. But the documentary record is not silent in the other direction either. The Smith line on Chaplin's father's side is on the marriage register at Ipswich. The skeleton in the family cupboard is in Chaplin's own handwriting. The black patch was a real settlement with a real queen named Smith and a real history of state eviction in the year Chaplin turned 16. And Chaplin's son Michael, now in his 70s, has spoken publicly. He stood at the black patch in July 2015 on the 110th anniversary of the eviction and unveiled a granite memorial there. He told reporters his father acknowledged the Romani heritage privately to his children, and that at the time of his fame, claiming it openly would have cost him too much. Because there is one more thing the script of Chaplin's life rearranges once you know. In 1940, while the Nazi regime was systematically deporting Romani people to camps that would eventually kill between 220,000 and 500,000 of them, Chaplin was making The Great Dictator. He played a Jewish barber. He never publicly said that the Roma persecution was on his mind. He didn't have to. The man who built that film to mock Hitler had spent his entire career playing a wanderer. The tramp was a man in a borrowed coat with no fixed address, carrying a violin, kicked out of every settlement he tried to enter, beloved exactly to the degree that he stayed unplaceable. Biographer Joyce Milton put it directly. She believed Hitler's persecution of the gypsies was very much on Chaplin's mind when he wrote the screenplay, but that he never said so publicly. The tramp had a history. Chaplin just couldn't say where it came from. There is a pattern in 20th century fame that the Chaplin case sits inside. Famous people who came from somewhere the public would have used against them. People who locked the evidence in a drawer and walked out into a story everyone else preferred. The fabrication was never just vanity. It was almost always safety, inherited and maintained until even the person doing the maintaining had lost the original behind it. Chaplin's granddaughter Carmen is finishing a documentary right now that reads his entire body of work through this heritage. The Chaplin family has been on the record since 2011. The piece of paper that would settle the question of his birthplace has never been found, and probably never will be. What is left is a marriage register in Ipswich, a locked drawer in Vevey, a missing certificate at Somerset House, a memorial stone at Smethwick, and one sentence Chaplin wrote at the height of his fame about a skeleton he would not quite name. If you found this fascinating, hit subscribe for more stories like this.